NDTV World, your new home for global news is here.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, you're watching NDTV World. I'm Priyanka Das and I'll be taking you through the top global stories, but first, a quick check of the top headlines. Canada Prime Minister Mark Carney slams US, says old relationship is over, will fight with retaliatory tariffs. Putin suggests temporary administration for Ukraine led by the United Nations. Reports suggest US has paused contributions to the World Trade Organization. US Health Department to cut 10,000 jobs. 6 Russians die after tourist submarine sinks off Egypt's coast, 39 tourists rescued. Reports say steel magnate Lakshmi Mittal may leave Britain following crackdown on non-domiciled residents. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has called President Donald Trump's new tariffs on auto imports is unjustified and in violation of the existing trade agreements, and said that Canada would impose retaliatory trade actions of their own. Speaking in Ottawa, Carney promised Canada's retaliation will have maximum impact in the United States and minimum impact here in Canada. Trump on Wednesday said that he was placing 25% tariffs on auto imports, and to underscore his intention, he stated, this is permanent. Carney spoke after chairing his special cabinet committee on the US relations. Let's listen in to what Mark Carney had to say.
And our response to these latest tariffs is to fight, is to protect, and to build. We will fight the US tariffs with retaliatory trade actions of our own that will have maximum impact in the United States and minimum impacts here in Canada.
Let's now go across to my colleague Maha Siddiqui, who's joining us live. Maha, help us understand now, with Carney saying that they will impose or go ahead with a retaliatory tariff, what kind of a significance is that likely to have on the geopolitical landscape?
Well, already the relations between the US and Canada have dipped to an all-time low, considering that they are neighbors and they have been allies and partners for over many decades now. So the relationship is already soured, and that is because of the trade and tariff war that is on because of US President Donald Trump imposing tariffs against Canada. Now, the latest round of this between the US and Canada, the war of words that we are seeing has been triggered because of the 25% tariff that has been imposed on for import of foreign cars that the US is now going to levy. Now, this is going to have significant impact on Canada, considering that half the exports of cars from Canada was to the US. And the auto industry is very closely tied between the two countries. Even the supply chain, if you take a look at that, Priyanka, it goes from Canada to US to Mexico. So it's very difficult because it's so closely interlinked, this industry in North America, across these three countries, that any action of this nature is going to have a a great impact, especially at this time in Canada when it's going to go in for elections. We are seeing leaders, including Mark Carney, going to some of the places like Windsor in Ontario, which is the auto hub of Canada. So clearly, this reflects the kind of the sentiment on the ground related to these tariffs, especially associated with the automobile industry.
All right, Mal, thank you so much for getting us all those details. We'll keep coming back to you as the Trump tariff schemes to sort of create havoc further on. But it's time for us to switch gears and move on to the next story that we're tracking very closely, and that's the Russian news agencies have reported early on Friday that Russian President Vladimir Putin suggested Ukraine could be placed under a form of temporary administration. This is to allow for new elections and the signature of key accords with the aim of reaching a settlement in the war. Now, Putin also said that he believed that US President Donald Trump, who has improved ties with Russia, sincerely wanted to end the more than 3-year-long conflict. He also said that Russia was steadily moving towards achievement of its goals in the conflict. Now, reports suggest that the United States has also paused contributions to the World Trade Organization for 2024 and 2025. Now, as US President Donald Trump's administration ramps up efforts to cut government spending, the Trump administration is reiterating from the global institutions it sees at odds with its America First economic policies. Now, the WTO had an annual budget of $232.06 million in 2024, and the United States was due to contribute about 11% of that is based on a fee system that is proportionate to its share of global trade. Let's go across to Ray Locker, senior journalist and author. Mr. Locker, help us understand, what does this really mean in terms of the impact and the operations of the WTO going ahead?
Well, I think the WTO will find that money somewhere else, perhaps from China, perhaps even some more from India. It'll come from trade rivals to the United States. So this is basically poking our own eyes out and hoping for the best, but it's not strengthening the United States in the trade wars. It's weakening us. Every step we do does like this weakens the United States position abroad. It doesn't generate more respect. We're seeing this with Canada, and this is another example of that.
Mr. Locker, as you also mentioned that the position of the US will be further eroded following this kind of a move, really. And now considering that the United States was also the larger contributor to the WTO, as you mentioned that the WTO now might look to China or perhaps even India, but in terms of the global positioning of the US when it comes to trade itself, how's that really likely to pan out?
Well, it's a net negative. It hurts us. It hurts us abroad. I mean, United States has thrived because it's a magnet for some of the best talent from around the world. It's a market that people want to be in. And now we're telling the rest of the world, no, we don't care about you. We don't want to play with you. Oh, you're picking on us. You're victimizing us. So we're not going to play anymore. And that is extremely counterproductive.
All right, Mr. Locker, thank you so much for sharing your insights on that. Now, staying on the United States itself, in a major overhaul, the United States Department of Health and Human Services will lay off 10,000 workers and shut down entire agencies, which include the ones that oversee the billions of dollars in funds for addiction services and community health centers across the country. Now, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has also criticized the department he oversees and said that there's an inefficient and sprawling bureaucracy in a video message. He faulted the department's 82,000 workers for the decline in the Americans' health. Overall, the department will downsize to 62,000 positions, losing nearly a quarter of its staff. That's about 10,000 jobs through layoffs, and another 10,000 workers who took early retirement and voluntary separation offers encouraged by President Donald Trump's administration. Now, public health experts, doctors, current and former health service workers have quickly slammed Kennedy's plans, warning that they could have untold consequences for the millions of people in America. Switching gears to Australia, now Australians will go to polls on May 3rd for the general elections with a high cost of living and a shortage of housing likely weighing against the government. Now, as Prime Minister Anthony Albanese's centre-left Labour Party seeks a second 3-year term, Albanese drove to Governor General Sam Austin's official residence on Friday to trigger the election and announced the date later at a news conference at the Parliament House.
Your vote has never been more important, and your choice has never been more clear. This election is a choice between Labor's plan to keep building or Peter Dutton's promise to cut. That is the choice.
US Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that the US has revoked at least 300 foreign students' visas as part of President Donald Trump's effort to clamp down on pro-Palestinian protesters on the university campuses. Now, Rubio was asked to confirm how many student visas the administration had revoked in its crackdown on a rhetoric that it considers anti-Israeli. Now, the remarks follow immigration officials' detention of a doctoral Turkish student who is attending the Tufts University and arrest the secretary defended. Let's listen into what Marco Rubio had to say.
Maybe more. It might be more than 300 at this point. We do it every day. Every time I find one of these lunatics, I take away their visa.
You're saying it could be more than 300
sure,
visas?
I hope. At some point, I hope we run out because we've gotten rid of all of them. But we're looking every day.
Iran has responded through Oman to a letter from United States President Donald Trump in which he urged Tehran to reach a new nuclear deal, the Iranian state media has reported. Now, Iran's official IRNA news agency published an article on Thursday citing Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi as saying that an Iranian response to Trump's letter was appropriately sent through Oman. Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Thursday spoke with King Philippe of Belgium, discussing shared close bilateral ties between the two countries, along with boosting trade and investment and advancing collaboration in innovation. The Prime Minister's conversation comes amid reports of fugitive Indian businessman Mehul Choksi, who's been living in Belgium's Antwerp with his wife Preeti Choksi, who is a Belgian citizen. West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee's visit to the UK turned sour when she faced protests and disruptions during her speech at the Oxford University's Kellogg College. The audience started heckling Banerjee as she held up an old image of herself from the early 1990s, showing her with a bandaged head. She claimed it as proof of an attempt to kill her during her time in the opposition. The disruptions began when Banerjee was speaking about Bengal's development and investment opportunities. There's further disruptions when she was asked to name specific investment proposals with lakhs of crores that she claimed the state had received. It's time for us to take a short commercial break. Lots more news and updates coming up on the other side. Stay tuned.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news, is here.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
In terms of the strategic relationship and the intelligence arrangements between India and the United States, to what extent is it premised on perhaps an expansionist or an expanding China and the Asia-Pacific region?
You know, the ties between our two countries, the United States and India, go very, very far back. And so what we're continuing to see is a strengthening of that partnership and recognizing that the mutual interests of both of our countries are centered around peace, prosperity, freedom, and security. So now as we see a new administration coming in with President Trump's leadership in the United States, of course, Prime Minister Modi's long-standing leadership here in India, we have two leaders of our two great countries who are very good friends and who are very focused on how we can strengthen those shared objectives and those shared interests.
The other big international talking point is obviously the situation between Russia and Ukraine, and we're all optimistic, and I've covered the war 3 times. Be that as it may, if President Putin doesn't come on the table with the peace agreement which has been proposed by the United States, can Washington indefinitely keep arming Ukraine and, in a sense, allowing them to continue their fight?
President Trump is seeing this ongoing conflict with very clear eyes. And he has made his position and his priority very clear, which is to bring about an end to this war. So he is focused on peace. The negotiations have just begun. He's looking forward to success in those negotiations, not for himself, but for the cause of peace and to stop the killing of innocent and taking of innocent lives there. So he has the best negotiators working with both the Ukrainians and with Russia and with Putin. And we look forward to seeing the continued progress that we've already seen over a very short period of time. I think it's important to point out that under the previous administration, during which this war began, there was no effort at all towards peace.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news, is here.
One of your primary concerns and one of your primary responsibilities is to deal with the threat of terror. And at the moment, we see a great deal of that out of Yemen. We see attacks on shipping taking place, and we see the United States being very much on the offensive. Is that a prelude for something larger, perhaps even a ground offensive going forward?
When you look at President Trump's leadership going back through his first term as president, he has been and remains very committed to combating and defeating the threat of Islamist terrorism that not only affects the United States, the American people, our own safety and security, but it is affecting so many people in different parts of the world. We can see different terrorist groups, the Houthis in Yemen being one of them, that President Trump has redesignated after President Biden took them off of the terrorist list, redesignated them appropriately as a terrorist organization, and taking action where the previous administration failed to.
Right.
The Houthis have been disrupting maritime trade and passage for a very long time, and no serious effort has been taken to stop that disruption. Our country and other countries should not be in a position to have to make a decision to reroute commerce going through that area simply because of the Houthi threat that exists. So President Trump has taken decisive action for our own safety, security, and prosperity. And I know we'll look to other affected countries, as there are many who are impacted by this, to similarly take action.
Welcome back. You're watching NDTV 24x7, and get you the next world story we're tracking is steel magnate Lakshmi Mittal, who is considering leaving the UK in response to the Labour government's decision to abolish the non-dom tax regime, making him one of the wealthiest business figures to potentially relocate, according to reports. Now, Mittal, who has been based in the UK for nearly 30 years, has been telling his associates that his likely departure is driven by the government's move to end tax exemptions for certain foreign income and gains, according to reports. Ranked 7th on the Sunday Times rich list last year with an estimated £14.9 billion fortune. Now, Mittal owns high-value properties across Europe, the United States and Asia. Shifting focus, helicopters dumped water over a burning forest in South Korea on Thursday as fire crews struggled to contain the country's worst ever wildfires, which have so far killed 28 people, forced at least 37,800 to flee their homes, and destroyed thousands of structures and vehicles. Multiple wildfires fueled by the strong winds and dry weather have been raging across South Korea's southeastern region since last Friday. The government has mobilized thousands of personnel, dozens of helicopters and other equipment to extinguish the blaze. But the gusty winds are hampering their efforts. The fatalities include a pilot whose helicopter crashed during the efforts to contain a fire on Wednesday, and 4 firefighters and other workers who died earlier after being trapped by the fast-moving flames. Authorities so far say that the fires were caused due to human error. Let's go across to Zerin Osho, the Director, Institute for Governance and Sustainable Development, is joining us live. A very good morning. Thank you for joining us. Help us really understand. Now, earlier this year, there was the Los Angeles wildfires. To now in South Korea, really, how would you say the climate change is sort of being responsible for what's happening in South Korea right now?
Thanks, Priyanka, and good morning, and thank you so much for having me on the show this morning. And you've rightly pointed out it's uncanny, the similarities between what's happening, unfortunately, in South Africa with what had happened in Los Angeles. And I think the most common factor in both these geographically distant places is the phenomenon of dry winds and heat spells during the wildfire season, as they're called. So in LA, in California, we had the Santa Ana winds that were basically these really dry, arid rainless winds that were carried from the central mainlands to the coastlands. Something similar is happening in Korea. So Korea also has a lot of wildfires during the autumn season. That is also because of, the drier winds, lesser rainfall. But within the first 3 months of this year, we're still in March, they've already had about 244 wildfires, which is about 2.5 times higher than what they experienced last year. So I think one common phenomenon that has to be taken into consideration is the fact that as temperatures are increasing, and one would imagine that as temperatures increase, the linear impacts of climate change would be seen. So they can be calculated by climate models. Unfortunately, that's not what's happening. That's not what's happening. You have non-linearity and these fat tail risks that are associated with temperature rise. So even if there is a percentage increase in temperatures, extreme weather events do not increase linearly. They are going to be non-linear and fat-tailed. So that basically means the extreme climate or extreme weather events are a lot more frequent, a lot more unpredictable. And unfortunately for South Korea, what has happened is it is a country that has a high density of pine trees, and pine trees have a lot of resin, which act as a fuel with the winds. And to make matters worse, it seems that rain is only expected to come by tomorrow. So we have another 24 hours to see how this will pan out.
All right, Ms. Osho, thank you so much for getting us all those details and really sharing your insights on the climate change and its impact on the wildfire that's been reported in South Korea. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Shifting focus, a recreational submarine that was taking 45 tourists on an underwater cruise of coral reefs in the Red Sea sank off the Egyptian resort town of Hurghada on Thursday, leaving 6 Russians dead. The remaining tourists, more than 24 of whom were injured, have been rescued. Now, the cause of the sinking was not known immediately. However, the Russian consulate said that it took place about 1,000 meters offshore. The Sudanese army shelled parts of Khartoum's twin city of Omdurman from early morning on Thursday. Meanwhile, the residents said that after declaring the victory over the Rapid Support Forces, rivals in a 2-year battle for the capital. Now, the Sudanese Armed Forces Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan has declared that Khartoum is free. Hours after his forces recaptured Khartoum airport from the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, Niamey ousted the RSF from its last footholds in Khartoum city, but the paramilitary RSF holds some areas in Omdurman, directly across the Nile River, and is consolidated in West Sudan, splitting the nation essentially into rival zones. It's time for a short commercial break. Lots more news and updates coming up on the other side. Stay tuned.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news, is here.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
One of your primary concerns and one of your primary responsibilities is to deal with the threat of terror. And at the moment, we see a great deal of that out of Yemen. We see attacks on shipping taking place, and we see the United States being very much on the offensive. Is that a prelude for something larger, perhaps even a ground offensive going forward?
I mean, you look at President Trump's leadership going back through his first term as president, he has been and remains very committed to combating and defeating the threat of Islamist terrorism that not only affects the United States, the American people, our own safety and security, but it is affecting so many people in different parts of the world. We can see different terrorist groups, the Houthis in Yemen being one of them, that President Trump has redesignated after President Biden took them off of the terrorist list, redesignated them appropriately as a terrorist organization, and taking action where the previous administration failed to.
Right.
The Houthis have been disrupting maritime trade and passage for a very long time, and no serious effort has been taken to stop that disruption. Our country and other countries should not be in a position to have to make a decision to reroute commerce going through that area simply because of the Houthi threat that exists. So President Trump has taken decisive action for our own safety, security, and prosperity. And I know we'll look to other affected countries, as there are many who are impacted by this, to similarly take action.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news, is here.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
This is NDTV, and you're watching NDTV 24x7.
Good morning, you're watching Breakfast Show. I'm Radhika Ramaswamy. Congress government in Karnataka faces flack after milk price increase in the state, terrorists and policemen killed in Kathua encounter, and Supreme Court to hear plea seeking FIR in the Justice Verma cash case. We have a lot coming up, but first the headlines. Karnataka government hikes milk prices by ₹4 per litre. BJP says hike shows Congress government's financial crisis. Even as CID probes Karnataka honey trap scandal, Karnataka Minister Rajanna's son claims threat to life. Tamil Nadu Chief Minister Stalin hails Telangana as it passes resolution on delimitation. TVK Chief Vijay's first General Council meet set to happen today. And 2 terrorists have been killed in an encounter in Jammu and Kashmir's Kathua. Judge cash case escalates as Supreme Court to hear plea for FIR against Justice Verma. Canadian Prime Minister says ties with United States are over. He says it's clear the US is no longer a reliable partner. First up, politics is heating up in Karnataka after Karnataka government on Thursday announced an increase in selling price of milk and curd by ₹4 per litre effective from April 1. This decision was made during a cabinet meeting held by Chief Minister Siddaramaiah. BJP Karnataka, of course, denouncing this move and terming the Congress government as anti-poor and also saying that this is a tactic to cover up financial troubles caused by their guarantees. Let's listen in to all the reactions.
लगभग दो साल से जब से सरकार कांग्रेस सरकार कर्नाटक में आए हुए है तब से सब जो हमारा मिल्क हो, पेट्रोल हो, रजिस्ट्रेशन चार्ज हो, लीकर हो, ये हमारा व्हीकल टैक्स हो, व्हीकल रजिस्ट्रेशन हो, बर्थ एंड डेथ सर्टिफिकेट, ये ऐसे बहुत चीजें हैं जिसका मेरा तुरंत ध्यान में आया, मैंने आपको बता रहा हूं। सबका प्राइस लगातार बढ़ा रहा है। दूसरी बार दूध का दाम बढ़ा दिया है। इसका अर्थ है कि उनका फाइनेंशियल कंडीशन ठीक नहीं है।
Government is now very well known for bankruptcy, corruption and price rise. Almost all commodity prices have been increasing and on day-to-day basis. Today itself, they have increased the price of the milk by ₹4. People are now fed up of this government there is a huge financial burden on each and every family, especially the poor family.
We're joined by Nehal on this. Nehal, milk prices have increased again in Karnataka. BJP slamming Congress over hike, while Congress government has defended its move. BJP saying Congress trying to cover up bankruptcy caused by its guarantees. Take us through the reasoning for this hike and also the politics that's playing out in the state.
Farmers of Karnataka Milk Federation have been protesting for quite some time. They want that their support price should be increased. And this protest has been going on here at several places. And as you know, Karnataka is the second largest producer of milk. And here, the government was under pressure to increase the milk price by 5 rupees per litre. But the government yesterday has announced that they are going to increase the price by 4 rupees per litre, and all the 4 rupees going to the welfare of the farmers. Means it will be directly given to the farmers. Government is not going to take anything. This is what the Karnataka Corporation Minister Rajanna has said, that whatever amount the milk price is going to be increased, and this amount will be given to the farmers and not to the Karnataka Milk Federation ownership. So this is the stance of the government. Still, after that, the government released the data that how costlier is going to be the milk. Here, Karnataka toned milk will be, now after the increase in the price, will be available for 47 rupees to 48 rupees per litre. And the premium slot will be for 53 rupees, whereas the curd price has been increased from 50 rupees to 54 rupees.
All right. Thank you for getting us all of those important details, Nehal. In fact, staying on with Karnataka, even as the Karnataka Minister K.N. Rajanna's son and Congress MLC Rajendra Rajanna said officials from the CID of State Police have begun a preliminary investigation into alleged attempts to honey trap his father and had visited his official residence. Mr. Rajendra alleged that there have been attempts to murder him. The claim comes days after Rajendra's father, Rajanna, caused a stir in Karnataka politics after he told the assembly that honey trap attempts had been made on him and that at least 48 politicians across parties had fallen victims to such schemes. Let's go back to Nehal on this. Nehal, we believe the CID has begun a probe into the allegations that has been made by the minister, but even as that is going on, minister's son has alleged that there has been an attempt to murder him.
See, here the case is very clear. If such things have taken place, it should be reported to the police through the proper channel. If a crime happens or attempted crime happens, in such cases, the case or the complaint has to be registered with the police. But here, both the father and son, they are not directly approaching the concerned police officer. Rajanna, after 3-4 days of persuasion, approached the Karnataka Home Minister and registered his complaint with him. After that, yesterday, his son met the Karnataka DGP, IGP, Mr. Alok Mohan, and there he requested for the probe. Now his son is saying that some CID officials have visited Rajanna, his father, who is the corporation minister, and they have started in the probe. But as per the rule, the probe has to be notified by the government. So far, we have not got any notification either from the Ministry of Home Affairs here in Karnataka or from the Karnataka CMO. So now we have to see that when the notification comes, because only then this will be clear that which level of inquiry it is, whether it is going to be headed by a DIG level officer or it is going to be headed by an IGP or ADGP level officer. So the status